Name is Elayna Shakur. And the first thing I'll say about myself is that my birth name was Elaine Beeson. And about 30 years ago, I changed my name because I liked what Shakur means. It means to be thankful. So I tried to sign a painting, Elayna Shakur, but it didn't sort of flow. So I changed my first name to Elayna, and that flowed, Elayna Shakur. So that's the most important thing I can say about myself at this moment. The way I define myself is a witnessing presence. I feel like I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not what I do, but I am that which observes and witnesses what I do. That's behind what I do and behind what other people do. So I'm witnessing.
So why did you become a painter?
That's a very big question. I can tell you that it started when I was around Zula's age, around 6. And I would be on the bus with my mother. It was actually a streetcar back in those days. And I would sit there and stare at people. And my mother would say, "Don't stare. It's not polite to stare." But I loved to stare at people. So I started drawing people. And that gave me a reason to stare at them. I could really look at them and see beyond the surface even, because I would look at them so carefully and try to capture what I saw. And I wanted to be very, very realistic. I wanted it to look like them so much that I think what happened is, because they knew I wanted to really see them, they began to let me see them on a deeper level. So the portraits that I did started becoming more like therapy. They got to see themselves as I saw this, as they allowed me to see them. So I went from doing drawings of people as they sat for me to painting them, because I really enjoyed the idea of painting the just what paint did, the color, the depth of color that I could get. And I could get color to tell me more and more about the person as I worked on it. And then I went from that to recently, in the last 5 years, I started painting outer space. And I love the nebulas. I use images from the Hubble, now the James Webb Space Telescope. And I integrate the outer space into the portraits. But now, I'm not going to do any more portraits, probably, or very few. I'm going to just stick with outer space. It's kind of an evolution. I feel complete with portrait art. And one of the reasons I liked doing portraits is because I actually liked pleasing people. And I wanted them to like what they saw and help me to make it even more what they wanted. And I'm not as interested in pleasing people because it's a lot of work to please people. And so I've decided I'm going to paint outer space because I can be relaxed and paint what I see, and it doesn't have to please anybody. So I've evolved. That's what it is. I've evolved as an artist.
So, I hope this isn't too touchy of a subject, but you just recently had your second heart attack?
Second one?
Heart attack?
Yes.
So, with that, what revelation has arrived to you from that?
That's a good question. It really has to do with the last answer to the question about my art. And I think part of the reason it's evolved to this point that I don't want to please anybody except myself. I realized that I don't have forever. I thought I was going to live forever, but I realized that I probably won't live forever. And so I want to do something that really speaks to my deepest inner self. And that has been because I realized that I am finite and I only have so much time, so I want to go deep inside myself and bring it out. And what helps me do that is outer space, strangely enough. So I'm painting outer space to go into my inner space. I don't understand that either, so don't ask me.
Okay.
But I can tell you something that's kind of interesting because you're going to take pictures, I think, of the paintings. My father used to say all the time, I can tell where you are by reading your walls. And so I think of that often because I look at my walls and I can tell where I am. Sometimes I don't even know, but I look at my walls and I can tell. So one of the big reasons that I paint is so that I can give expression to something that I don't even know myself, that I have to paint it to see it. People say, you mean you don't visualize? You don't visualize things before you paint them? I said, no, I paint to see. I think that mainly I want my legacy to be that I loved them. They felt loved. They felt accepted unconditionally. And that's been a process. I've learned to be more accepting and to submit. And I didn't understand what submitting meant until I did a painting of Jesus, which you'll see. And my mother had said to me, the reason why you have difficulty with this person that you're interacting with is because neither one of you is stronger than the other. And I'm like, I don't understand that. So it took me 50 years to finally ask the question, what does that mean that one person has to be stronger than the other? So I asked the painting of Jesus, and his answer was immediately in my mind, and it said, submit. I didn't quite understand what submit meant, but I'm beginning to understand that it's hard to be accepting and non-judgmental, which is the legacy I want to leave for my family, if I am not able to submit. And that doesn't mean I give in and give up, but it means that I'm strong enough to let go and give the other person a chance. And so I actually saw an image of the James Webb Space Telescope, and it hit me that that was what I wanted to paint, to say submit. And it says submit to the light is the name of the painting, and we'll see that.
talk about you painted Jesus. So do you feel you have a bonding relationship with Christ? You painted Jesus, you said.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. So you're a believer.
Yes.
And so that means you have a very strong relationship with Christ.
Very. Very strong.
Yeah.
And it's been recent. It's been in only 8 years. The last 8 years. And I was always went to church, and I was married to a minister. My brother was an Episcopal priest, and I resisted Jesus all my whole life until 8 years ago, and I accepted him in this church in the hood on the east side of Charleston. I go in there, and this priest, it was an Anglican church, conservative, and he said, okay, I want everybody, this was a prayer service, I want everybody to go find somebody and pray. And I found myself saying to this woman, when she said, what do you want me to pray for? I said, I'd like you to pray for me to accept Jesus. I've been resisting him my whole life. I couldn't believe that came out of my mouth. I didn't know where it came from. And that's when I accepted him. And then the priest of that church shortly afterwards said, I want you to paint the apostles. And I'm like, I don't even know the apostles. I didn't know anything about them. But the next morning I realized I have to paint. I need to use the men from the neighborhood in this rather poor neighborhood. I need to use the men who would be most like the apostles that Jesus would choose as my models. So it took me a year, and I painted one apostle a month. Now they're hanging in the church.
Where are you from?
Columbus, Ohio.
Born and raised?
Yep. Graduated from Ohio State in 1959. I wouldn't choose to be from Columbus, Ohio if I had a chance. I would choose to be from the Bahamas probably, because that felt like home. I lived in Nassau for 5 years and taught art there. That was wonderful.
Okay, awesome. So you were a teacher.
That was my subject that I graduated with, art education.
Okay.
What you might find interesting is that I taught art in a traditional way, especially in the Bahamas, because we had to send our artwork to London to be graded, so it was very regimented. And I had to teach them what to do. And then I came to Charleston, and I had a studio here downtown. Did you know that? I had a little studio downtown, and I had maybe 5 or 6 women coming into my studio to do art. And I learned not to teach them. That we meditated, and they went inside, and I told them they know everything. If they go deep inside, they know how to paint, they know how to draw, they know everything. And they did, and they painted wonderful things. I still do that in this space here.